So we want to tell you. So a coordinator, basically you're overseeing the production of a Science in the News talk. And the coordinator works with the speakers, providing feedback and doing all of the logistical work so that the speakers have an environment where they can produce a compelling and effective talk. And to do this, you will manage the group, you'll oversee talk production, you'll be the liaison between your speakers and us through your assigned director, which is on the Science in the News 2021 Google Sheet, and you'll schedule all of your group meetings as well. And that means that each week you will schedule the group meetings, you'll facilitate discussions and give slide feedback, and you will send your meeting recap and feedback notes to the speakers, because we have a saying that, well, I don't know if it's our saying, but spoken feedback is forgotten, so written feedback is not. So notes are helpful. So logistics. So pretty much every week, you are responsible for your group. So attendance, coordination, deadlines, the flow of the talk. And you are also responsible for scheduling the Zoom meetings. So creating the Zoom meeting with the meeting ID and the passcode. I can tell you that Yale, I think, now requires that Zoom meetings either have a passcode or at the very least a waiting room. So keep that in mind. And you will also send all of your group messages in your group Slack channel, and that way everything is centralized. There's one place to go. Slack is a fantastic thing. I'm very glad it exists. So, and the clock for your talk will start 7 weeks out from your first talk. That will be when your responsibilities really begin. And the reason we say 7 weeks out is because all of you have different months. So we'll be tracking this by like weeks until your first talk. So in order to calculate weeks from your first talk, you need to know the dates of your talks. And that's what we're doing right now. That's what the directors are doing. So we are communicating with the libraries to get those final dates. We expect that will be done by mid-December, at the very, very latest by early January. And we will let you know what those are. You are not responsible for that. We will send you the talk dates via Slack, and we will also put them in the Science in the News 2021 Google Sheet. If you haven't already figured out, this Google Sheet is going to be a good resource for you. So moving on to our logistics. So we have our little banner on the bottom here to help you keep track of where we are in our preparation. So 7 weeks before your first talk, the way this is set up is we're kind of going to have like what you need to do every week. So some of these things will need to get done by the time your group meets. Other things need to be done by the end of the week. That really depends on the week what those things are, and you will see as we go along. So 7 weeks before your first talk is when you start doing your logistical work. So your first meeting will be 6 weeks out, but 7 weeks out is when you need to start reminding everybody that things are happening, that Science in the News exists, et cetera, et cetera. So in that week, you will schedule your group's first meeting, send out the info on Slack. And the most important thing that you do 7 weeks before your first talk is you need to write your group's advertising blurb, have your group approve it, and send it to your director. This is very, very, very important because we need to give the libraries as much time as possible with as much information as possible so that they can actually advertise and get people to come to your talk. So this is crucial to get that advertising blurb written before even your first meeting. So this is your big task for 7 weeks out. 6 weeks out is your first meeting. So by the end of that week, you will have had your first group meeting with your speakers. And in that meeting, your main goals are to finalize the order of speakers and to establish a rough talk outline. So the overall flow of the talk, what is that roughly going to look like? In this week, as a coordinator, you also need to schedule the dry run and the dress rehearsal with your assigned director. So that means you need to reach out to your director on Slack and start scheduling when the dry run will be. That will be 3 weeks out from your first talk, and it will be your group plus your director to give feedback. And also the dress rehearsal, which will be 2 weeks out from your first talk. And that will be where all directors are present, and we will advertise it to the YSC community, and whoever wants to attend can attend. So those two, because they involve more people, they need to be scheduled well ahead of time. So by the end of that week, 6 weeks out, have both of those things scheduled with your director. 5 weeks out, this will be your second meeting. So by the end of this meeting, your goal is to have each speaker have a clear outline for their section of the talk. So each speaker should have, a slide deck that has, at the very least, like rough bullet points of what they will animate, what they will cover, how they will cover it. So you want like a fleshed out outline here. And then you want to schedule your next group meeting, which is, what you're going to be doing every week pretty much. So then 4 weeks out, this is your third meeting. In this meeting, by the end of it, your goal is to have your speakers have a full rough draft of their section of the talk. This is because your dry run is the following week, where your director will be present. So you really want your speakers to have a complete rough draft, like everything there, like everything that they want to cover is there by your third meeting. What this means is that the heaviest weeks for your speakers are going to be like basically this week. So it's going to be going from 5 weeks out to 4 weeks out, and then also going from 4 weeks out to 3 weeks out. Those are probably going to be the heaviest weeks for your speakers. But it's really important because it makes it easier in the long run. And it also, most important thing for everybody is that if you really encourage your speakers to have this complete rough draft, that means that your dry run will be more effective. And that means your dress rehearsal will be shorter, which is what you want. And it's also what we want. So really encourage that your speakers that by your third meeting, you want to have that full rough draft ready to go. Also in this week, you want to complete and submit your group handout. We will provide the template for that. We're still in the process of revising. So don't worry, this is not a mystery. We will send you like a template saying like, fill in X thing here. So that will be clear when you receive the template. Also this week, you want to remind your speakers and your director that the following week is the dry run and the director will be in attendance. So 3 weeks before your first talk, this is your dry run. And in this meeting, your speakers and you will go through the entire talk without interruptions. And then after that is done, everybody will give feedback, and the director will give feedback as a fresh set of eyes. Because this will be your first time really going through the whole talk, you need to have your intro slides made. So this will be like introducing the speakers, kind of setting the stage for the whole talk, setting the stage for the flow of the talk. We will give you examples of those as well. And as you go through the process, you can ask any questions of us that you would like. And your director will also give you feedback on these at your dry run. But for the dry run, you want to have at least a rough draft of your intro slides for your talk. And then you will also remind your speakers and your directors about the dress rehearsal next week. Now, it is not your responsibility to advertise this. We will do this from the YSC Yale Connect page. So it's just a case of saying like, hey, next week is the dress rehearsal. Ta-da! That's pretty much it. So we will handle the advertising for that. We will handle making the Zoom links for that. So you're off the hook for this week. So 2 weeks before your first talk, this is your dress rehearsal, and it will be 3 hours. We have tried to have it be 2 hours. It's not. It's 3 hours. So I've given up trying to tell people that it's 2. It's not. So again, make sure that your group has rough drafts by 4 weeks out and has a complete section, a complete talk by 3 weeks out, so that you can reduce the amount of time that your dress rehearsal takes. That's what we all want. So you will give the presentation all the way through from start to finish, no interruptions. So your intro slides should be complete. Your handout should be complete. You will go through the whole talk. All of your speakers will go through all of their talks. And then we will sit down and we will go through slide by slide with all the directors offering feedback, little corrections. Sometimes this gets tedious, but it's the last thing that really makes your talk that much more polished and ready to go. So once that is done, your goal at this is, once your dress rehearsal is done, your speakers should have clear feedback from the dress rehearsal on what to improve and how to improve it. So all of the edits that they need to make should be noted, and they should have them written somewhere somehow. So 1 week before your first talk, you want to have a check-in with your speakers and make sure that your speakers have incorporated all of the edits from the dress rehearsal. And then you guys, if you feel you need to, you can talk about it some more and make sure that all of the transitions are refined, make sure you know what you're going to do with Zoom. If you're going to have cues for anything, like cues for talking to the audience, or, make sure all of that is ironed out, you know what you're doing. Again, you'll be revising your intro slides as necessary from the dress rehearsal, revising the handout as necessary from the dress rehearsal. And this week, 1 week out, you will receive your first talk's Zoom information from your director and or the venue. Some venues send the Zoom link directly to you and the speakers. Others send it to the director, and then the director will send it to you. Some do both. You will receive the Zoom link somehow, some way, possibly multiple times this week. And then the goal at the end of this week is that all sections of the final talk should be complete, polished, and practiced. At the end of this week, everything should be ready to go. So then the day before each talk, you want to send your speakers a reminder message on Slack with the talk time, the venue, and the Zoom information. This is really, really important to minimize miscommunications. So it's really, really, really important to send this reminder message and just make sure that those Zoom links are at the top of everybody's feed, make sure that they're easy to access, make sure there are no issues there. Also here, you want to keep an eye out for logistical updates from your director in case, the venue contacts us with something or something changes last minute. So just keep an eye out on Slack for those updates. And then the day of each talk, again, send your speakers a reminder, make sure that Zoom link is at the top of their feed, easy to access. And then you want to log in 15 to 30 minutes early and confirm that all of your speakers can share their screens. Everybody's a host who needs to be a host. Audio is working. Make sure that all of those tech things are functional, etc. And then you start. Ta-da! So, and then you will do that for 3 more talks. So 4 in total. So materials, we will provide them to you. So you don't need to worry about this. We will provide you with slide templates, handout templates, examples of intro slides, and an official document with detailed responsibilities, which will basically be this PowerPoint presentation in a PDF. But another reference for you, you will also have access to this presentation via the link that I think Nick sent out in the chat. That's a view link so that you will always be able to view this presentation. We are also recording this and we will be posting it on YouTube, so you will have access to this recording as well. One other thing I want to say about the slide templates. These are the standard Science in the News slides. So these are the slides, like you can do whatever you want in the body of the slide. This is just like having like an index on the left side, having all the correct logos in all the right spaces. You have all the freedom in the world for the body, but we want to make sure that we have a professional, clean, consistent presentation of our organization. So we will send them to you. Don't worry about that. You will have them before you even start meeting. Just make sure that your speakers are actually using those templates because, you know, we do want that professional, consistent look. Yeah, I think that covers it. And then I think Caleb is going to take over from here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lizzie. So I'm going to share my screen with all of you now. Can you all see my screen? Just give me a thumbs up if you can. Excellent. So we've talked right now so far about what the general flow is going to be leading up, and the time frame is going to be leading up to your first talk. So now we're going to talk about, at each of your meetings, what are you actually doing and what are you responsible for during your meetings when you're managing your group of speakers, when you're giving them feedback. How do you give them feedback? What criteria are you using to ensure that your talk is good? Because as a coordinator, your goal is basically to make your speakers give an awesome talk. And not just an awesome talk, but an exceptionally awesome talk. So now we're going to spend a few slides just going through, bringing everyone up to speed about what makes an exceptionally awesome talk. In particular, you're going to want to have clear, interesting content in that talk, neat, engaging, relatable visuals, some sort of narrative progression, and an aesthetic and thematically cohesive talk. As a coordinator, you're going to work with your speakers to make sure that your talk checks off all of these boxes, that it fits into all of these criteria. So when I say clear, relatable content, what I mean is that this talk is for a general audience. So anything, any complex scientific topic or entity or object or term or phrase has to be explained clearly. Anything that isn't explained is going to be jargon to your general audience. So without looking on to the next slide, and this is only for coordinators, no directors answer this question, which of these terms here are jargon? Does anyone have an idea? Feel free to call out.
All of them.
I think most of them.
Yeah, most of them.
Maybe not bacteria, but everything else.
Maybe not bacteria. So even bacteria, now it will depend on your audience, and this does vary to some degree, but for the most part, all of these are jargon. No one has a clear idea of exactly what these are. And even if they've heard of them in the news or whatnot, I shouldn't say no one, people will tend not to have a clear idea of what these things are. Even if they've read articles in the New Yorker or something about bacteria, they won't have a clear definition of bacteria that corresponds to what you're trying to get across in the talk. So it's important to bring people up to speed on exactly what definition we're using for the talk that you're giving here. So it's important to minimize this jargon. Now, I'm not saying that you can't use these terms. You're welcome to, but you want to minimize the number of new terms you throw at the audience. Every jargon term should be described and explained clearly, because the audience will only have a certain amount of bandwidth. And you want to make sure that you're not overloading them with jargon terms so that they can focus on the cool content of the talk. Now, no matter how clear and effective your speaker explanations are, they need to be illustrated with engaging visuals. So here's an example of what I mean. These two slides have basically the same information, but what's the difference between them? Again, any coordinator, feel free to call out.
It's better to have the images than too much text, because if people are reading, they're not listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to be able to minimize the amount of text on the slides and represent the same information with graphics, visuals, flowcharts. It's amazing how with some creativity, almost all like so much text, the vast majority of text can be replaced by clear graphics and schematics and flowcharts. Now, in addition to being engaging and relatable and cool, you want your visuals to be neat. So this is a bit subtler. How do these two pictures differ? So these are some cool, fun, engaging visuals to illustrate whatever you're trying to explain in the slide. How are they different? Again, any coordinators, feel free to jump in.
There's kind of a typo, I guess, on the left one, or
Yeah.
sorry, the right one.
There's a typo on the right one, so it's like,
and then just like the labels also are less clear on that one.
yeah, the labels are less clear. The one on the left looks nicer, but why is that? There's more unused white space in the one on the right. The labels aren't in a consistent place with respect to the pictures on the right. The pictures aren't centered. One of them is a little bigger than the other for no reason. They're kind of slanted. So ultimately, you do want to eliminate typos. You want to minimize white space in your slides. You want to center or align text and images. And that's one of those things that isn't as obvious. It's just more aesthetic in general. There are exceptions, but in general, to have things centered or aligned in a way that is aesthetic or pleasing to the eye on a subconscious level. And then you want to have engaging slides where you replace text with pictures, graphics, etc., as much as possible. Simplify figures, so you never want to just sort of copy and paste a figure from an actual journal article. You want to animate and summarize and simplify those figures as much as possible, and use engaging animations and videos and other sort of interactive graphics. And this applies just as much, if not more, over Zoom, where it's harder to engage people with sort of in-person sort of rhetorical tools. Then you also want your talk to have some sort of narrative progression and general aesthetic and thematic cohesion. So you want your talk not to be a list of cool information. You definitely want the information to be cool and interesting and informative, but you want to hook people into that information. You want to introduce it in a way that's understanding and understandable and relatable and free of jargon. You want to make them understand why they should care about the talk you're going to give, present the problem they're going to learn about, and somehow resolve that problem. You want to have a lot of meta discourse in your talk. So you want to say, this is what we just explained to you. This is why it matters. This is where we're going next. This is what we've explained. This is what the next speaker will talk about. You want to make sure that each of the three speakers in your talk build off of the last speaker's presentation, so that together and within each talk, they form a clear narrative progression of some kind. In addition, you want to have talks that are aesthetically coherent. So you want to use consistent aesthetics, the same fonts or same set of fonts, the same color scheme, etc., throughout each talk. And you want to use recurring motifs that the audience can latch onto. So if speakers 1 and 2, say you're talking about birds or murder parrots, murder parrots, for example. This is an example from Nick Fisk's talk. If speakers 1 and 2 talk about parrots and they use one particular picture for parrots, and then speaker 3 uses a completely different picture for parrots, and there's no particular reason for it, it just was a different Google image picture, you want to just use the first one. You want to use a consistent aesthetic thing throughout the talk. They did an excellent job with that sort of thing, but I just mean as a hypothetical scenario, because murder parrot is very fun to say. So again, just as a summary, you're aiming to make your talk have, first and foremost, clear, informative, accurate, relatable content, and you want to relay that content to your general audience with neat, engaging visuals in a compelling way. You want to have a narrative progression that the audience can follow. These are not scientists, these are lay people, and you want them to be really engaged with this complex, complicated stuff. And you want to also have some sort of subtle subconscious cues in there, like aesthetic and thematic cohesion, that makes your talk more professional and more engaging and more polished. So as a coordinator, you're going to be giving your speakers feedback throughout this process at each of your meetings to ensure that they maximize each of these criteria that you're aiming for. And when you're giving feedback, I'm sure you all know this, but just to dot our I's and cross our T's, you want to start with the positive for the most part. You don't want to just like demolish them like it's a qualifying exam presentation. You want to start with the things you like about the talk and then discuss areas where they need work. So, and of course, you want to be nice and constructive. We don't want any Gordon Ramsays or Kevin O'Leary's here. Just try to stay friendly and professional and constructive. These speakers are all going to be super talented science presenters in general. And so their talk really just needs polishing for the most part. So that was our presentation, and we would welcome any questions now that you might have. And we'd love to get you guys going.
I have kind of a minor logistical question. A couple years ago when I was a presenter, we put all of our PowerPoints together in one file. Because it's going to be over Zoom, are we this year doing it in the 3 separate presentations so each speaker shares theirs?
Yes. So
Okay.
we have found that actually just works better, because then if each speaker is sharing their screen on their own, they can control when their animations pop up, etc. So we actually just talked about this, and we've found that over Zoom it makes a lot more sense just to have each speaker have their own presentation. It's also less work for you. So hooray.
Awesome. Thank you.